Hello and welcome to the Hot Seat Special. This is my truth about asylum. Yesterday we met asylum seeker John Patrick and refugee Hassan. John Patrick, a business executive and qualified electrician from the Horn of Africa, brutally persecuted because of his political views. And Hassan, an airport security official at Mogadishu Airport. He claims his father was shot dead in front of him. He too was shot and managed to escape with horrific injuries. If the physical and mental scars to deal with in their own countries wasn't enough, they say the Home Office system has added to their trauma here. While Hassan now has leave to remain, John Patrick, after being arrested and put into detention, is still living in fear and in limbo. Today, we revisit the drop-in centre where both John Patrick and Hassan volunteer, together with a team of people who are standing up for asylum seekers and refugees. It's where the most marginalised in our society can have a meal, learn English, and for a moment forget about the torment that is a constant in their lives. And we unravel destitution. First though, let's meet Adam Sinfield, a legal representative who knows all about this. He meets people at this drop-in centre most Tuesdays and worked both at the Home Office and has represented asylum seekers in court. He's seen both sides and agrees the whole changing system is a minefield, and the whole assessment process sometimes takes years. Why does it take so long?
Good question. It's not supposed to, is the long and short of it. The Home Office have a target that with new cases, so this is post-March 2007 cases, the new asylum model cases, they're supposed to make a decision within 28 days of arrival and the original claim for asylum. A lot of the time now that does happen, to credit to the Home Office, a lot more than it used to, but it's peaks and troughs. And a lot of it boils down, I know this from inside knowledge, to simple things like staffing issues. They might not have enough staff, they might have particularly complex cases. Some of it boils down to bureaucracy. Sometimes it boils down to the fact that we ask for a case to be postponed because we might be seeking medico-legal reports. There are some great organisations out there like the Medical Foundation, Helen Bamber Project, and these organisations are busy and it takes time. And if the Home Office is to make a fair decision, they want to wait for the evidence to come forward. They don't always, but it's a different story. So there's a multitude of reasons as to why it takes so long. But I would say the system is a lot better, but it does go in peaks and troughs. Because at the end of the day, you're dealing with humans.
Is the Home Office system fair?
It's a very difficult one to say what's fair and what isn't. And I see a lot of times where people have been treated horrendously by the system. I won't say that more than the Home Office, because use the word fair, a lot of the staff at the Home Office do want to do the best. They really do. Some of them not so much. Again, they're humans as well at the end of the day. I suppose part of the problem is case owners get case hardened as well. So you've got to see it from that side of the fence. But I see a lot of people here at Borderlands particularly, and similar organisations, where the system hasn't been fair with people. So, for example, they might be waiting for evidence that would confirm their case, but the Home Office can't wait. Again, boils down to the deadlines and the targets that they've got. A lot of the times they are. The fairness from my perspective, where I think the system lets people down often the most, isn't necessarily the decision-making process on the asylum case, it's the peripheral issues around it that cause a lot of people big problems. Housing, support, legal aid is the biggest one, not just for me, because obviously that's slightly self-serving to say that, but prime example that I've seen a couple of people today, family reunions. So they've recently recognised refugees, been fled, accepted that they're at risk if they go back. Their family are normally dislodged, not in their country of origin either, with no support. They want to bring them here, which they're entitled to do. But as you say, they won't necessarily speak English, they won't have any money, and now they've got no legal aid to have somebody like me, or the many people doing good work in Bristol, to help them get here. It was being challenged. High Court said yes, it was unfair, that legal aid shouldn't be given in family reunion cases. Court of Appeal disagreed, so we had to stop legal aid literally overnight on cases. Now I find that quite disgusting, because you're dealing with people separated from their family, accepted at risk. That's where the system is not fair.
Are asylum seekers and refugees given abundant financial privileges?
Massive misconception to believe they have a life of luxury. I mean, the initial dispersal accommodation in most of the regions, most settled people would be disgusted at if they saw it. They're not given big wads of cash every week, despite what some national newspapers may lead you to believe. They have an incredibly meagre existence. I mean, it's below the equivalent rates of income support or job seekers allowance. So they are treated differently. But yes, you can't say that it doesn't cost something. The staff cost something to process the claims, etc., etc., etc. But from my perspective, it's not a huge amount in the relative scheme of things, but also, you know, if we live in a democracy where we have freedoms, we have the benefits of being in a Western civilized country, and if we want to carry on those obligations, then I think we've got to suck it up. It doesn't mean that it's taking money from people who are here. And don't forget, the vast majority of the cases that I see, including the people here, contribute to this society massively once they're stated. And in fact, you look at a lot of the people here, even when they haven't got visas, a lot of the volunteers here have no status, but there they are, helping others in the community.
Are asylum seekers and refugees to blame for Britain being bankrupt?
God, no. Not even close. I mean, for a start, there's so many things that I could go off on here on a tangent. I'll try and stick to the point, because it's one thing that I hear quite a lot of. You tell people you're an immigration lawyer and people, well, it's not like that. I mean, for a start, legal aid, the pot is now tiny, so you can't say greedy lawyers are taking it all to help asylum seekers. A lot of asylum seekers, as I say, if they're on NAS support, receive very little. If their claims fail, that gets cut. They get no support from anyone. They're left destitute, so they certainly can't be costing anyone anything. Even if they have got kids and are thus entitled to some degree of basic support, it's vouchers. It's not like they go off and, you know, spend thousands of pounds on cars or whatever they want to.
Furthermore, arriving in this country and having no place to stay, no place to live, no friends, no family, isn't a good place to be. And it seems the system set up to help is being far from helpful.
It's our problem that we are not open to the stories of pain, and it is to our shame that so much of our system is plainly punitive. It punishes, it re-traumatizes. We're depriving them of their dignity as human beings, their identity as human beings, and that is an utter disgrace, and it's an abuse.
Can you understand why people find it difficult to tell their story?
I can completely understand why it's difficult if you've been a victim of torture, suffering from PTSD, and that...
What's that?
Post-traumatic stress disorder, which affects memory recall. I mean, and irrelevant of any previous problems that they've had, any torture they've had, the fact is these are people who are separated from their culture, from their families normally, most times, different languages. There is every barrier that is physically possible.
What do you understand by torture?
Torture can take on many forms. Psychological torture, still abuse, it's still persecution, so constant harassment, etc. That's much more difficult to prove from a medical perspective. It can be assault. It can take on any form that causes somebody physical or mental problems.
Can you understand why people flee?
100% I can understand. I mean, you look at it in context. The Geneva Convention, the 51 Refugee Convention, was designed to deal with the fallout from the Second World War and the amount of Jews in particular that had to flee the German-occupied zones. So if you put it in context, then you can rationalise exactly why this legislation exists. Nowadays, you have the same persecution going on around the world, maybe not be the same scale, but you look at the non-Arabs in Darfur, the conflict in Syria that's politically based, the previous tribal conflict in Somalia, now you have the conflict more between Al-Shabaab, etc. But even in cases where there is fighting or problems between groups, like Afghanistan being a prime example, you get a lot of Afghan refugees and asylum seekers in the UK, and they might not have a legitimate, in inverted commas, claim under the Refugee Convention because of the strict criteria that it applies. but I can understand why I would want to leave Afghanistan. The Home Office will pick apart someone's case about credibility issues. Most cases are refused on grounds of credibility, as they call it, which is basically the Home Office accusing them of lying.
And you've told your story, and then you're not believed, is a very hard thing to take. It's a very, very hard to take, and even to go to an extent of being attempted removal and being put on a plane was even more traumatizing than I could have even ever imagined.
Time for a break. When we come back, among the myths and misconceptions born from society, there's been a recent all-party parliamentary report published by former MP Sarah Tether, which suggests that the politicians have admitted to failing asylum seekers and refugees. Among other things, recommendations have been made regarding detention. Sarah Tether attended a national conference held in Bristol, together with a growing army of people who are standing shoulder to shoulder with justice. More on that story and the organisation Borderlands after this short break.